what's it like to grow up with Dutch directness? As you might hear, I'm Dutch and I moved to Sweden in 2024. It might not surprise you, but one of the biggest culture shocks that I experience here in Sweden is the differences in communication styles. The Swedes are way less direct than what I'm used to. And I thought it would be fun to show you a bit where I'm coming from and tell you a bit about my experiences with Dutch directness and how moving to Sweden has changed my way of communicating, and also how this changed how I experience it when other people are direct with me. Also, a tiny disclaimer, these are just my experiences, and also I know that some Dutch people will point out that this is not applicable on all of the Netherlands, but it definitely is in the Randstad. So in the sort of bigger cities area of the Netherlands, including Utrecht, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Den Haag. If you meet Dutch people from those areas, then it's likely that they will have a very direct communication style. But for instance, in the south of the Netherlands, people are a bit less direct, generally speaking. And I want to start with some stories about my mom. She is a very direct person. Sometimes this leads to pretty funny situations. So my mom is always honest, no matter the state I'm in. She will tell me what the deal is. For instance, during a time where I was going through a breakup, I spent more time at my family's place, so also at my mom's. And as I entered her home, the first thing she said was, "Whoa, you look terrible. You can look quite cute, but not today." And then she pointed out specific parts about me that weren't looking well. Luckily, I can laugh about those things. Like, it was kind of funny. It was also true. Like, I didn't look at my best at the time. I was going through a breakup. I didn't sleep well. I couldn't eat well. It was not my best time. But yeah, she wasn't afraid to pointing it out, believe it or not, but it was a very funny moment. I immediately started laughing because I was like, what's going on? It's a way too direct observation of the situation I'm in. And then another time I wanted to go on a date with someone and I was a bit nervous. It was this date through a dating app and I thought the guy was very good looking, and I got a bit insecure because those dating apps are so appearance based, so I was a bit insecure if he was too good looking or whatever. And then my mom said, "Oh, well, show me a picture then." And then I showed the picture and she went like, "Oh, he's not that good looking. No, I wouldn't bother about it. Don't worry." To me, these moments are very funny and not harmful at all, but I can imagine that other people might perceive these kind of situations as extremely direct. I think these two examples illustrate in a way how direct Dutch people can with each other without it resulting in any problem. I mean, of course, it depends also a bit on the type of relationship you have and some other aspects, but generally speaking, I think Dutch people can say a lot to each other without it resulting in a conflict or a problem. It's just the way of communicating with each other. So Dutch people are very good at giving opinions without anyone asking for any opinion. I had many uncomfortable situations actually as well, where, for instance, teachers would suddenly tell me like, "Oh, what are you standing there arrogantly in the corner?" Or "You look so arrogant," or something. And I'm like, "Whoa, I'm just standing here. I'm just quiet. I don't know what makes me arrogant by just being in this room." Or that some friends would draw any conclusions and give me like all these advice or opinions on me while they didn't even read the situation well. So sometimes it can also be quite intimidating when people just randomly tell you a bunch of things and you never asked for their opinion, or you never asked about how they perceive you, or, you know, you don't always want a judgment in any situation. Sometimes if you're struggling, you don't need a judgment or an opinion. No matter where I would go, like in public spaces or people I recently met or colleagues, or in all contexts, I would get opinions or comments about how they perceive me, what they're thinking, what they thought first of me, or how their opinion has changed suddenly. they would just drop the comments. And also on my body shape or my appearance. Like, of course, sometimes it's nice to get a compliment or something, but also other comments like that they would notice a change and then they would immediately point it out. Those situations aren't always nice or comfortable. You don't always want other people to point out what has changed in your appearance or how you look different without makeup. So those kind of comments I didn't really appreciate personally. But what is nice is that also a lot of Dutch people, because they are so direct and open and honest, you get a lot of fun comments as well. So a lot of compliments in the street. People are just saying like, hey, you look nice, or oh, this is fun, or they make a tiny joke about, or if if you're in the same situation and something happens and immediately there is something going on there. When I moved to Sweden, I realized how big the opinion culture is in the Netherlands, or how many opinions are being spread in media. I still want to do a comparison on this, but so far it seems that in the Netherlands there are way more opinion pieces in newspapers. So you would have articles, but also a lot of people writing columns, sharing their opinions. And also there are many talk shows in the Netherlands where just random people who are not an expert on the topic, they are just being invited and talk about anything and give their opinion on everything. And these talk shows, we have them every day. It seems that in Sweden this opinion culture is not that big. It's there, but it seems way less than in the Netherlands. An example I have on a personal level is that last year, I think it was, that the Dutch got disqualified from Eurovision. And people in the Netherlands, they all had their opinion ready. But when I asked some people here in Sweden, like, oh, what do you think about it, that this happened? And then their answer was, well, I don't know enough about the situation, so I'm missing too much information to form an actual opinion. And so that was a way more nuanced and also more political correct answer. But I think this shows a very specific cultural difference between Sweden and the Netherlands. Why are Dutch people so direct? I have been thinking a bit about this since I moved here, and I think that Dutch people are really valuing honesty and transparency, and that's a way to show each other that they respect each other, that they can trust each other. Whereas in Sweden, it works a bit the other way around, because in order to be kind, you're just not expressing what you actually want or really think. They also want to be kind, but in order to do that, you just don't say everything you think. It's not necessary to put your opinion on everyone. In Sweden, it's a bit more collective. People think about the group and about what the collective is doing. And in the Netherlands, people are just like, oh, I make my own rules. I can say what I want. They just have a bit more different attitude to how they move through society, I think. And I guess you can also wonder if the Dutch communication style is rude or just efficient. I mean, Dutch people, they are not afraid in general to give feedback and to say things they also give feedback in a very direct way. I had so many situations also at art school where, art schools are also a bit of a specific culture in the Netherlands, I think, but Dutch people can just say, this is wrong, you have to redo this is not what we're expecting, you need to change this is below standards, or all those kind of things. They will not be afraid to tell you. And I think sometimes Dutch people can be a bit tone deaf, especially in international context. I think Dutch people can be a bit tone deaf and not understanding that their direct communication style might not be appreciated or might be read very differently by other cultures. There are actually quite some things that directness gave me. I think this open communication style that the Dutch have helped me to express more clearly what I want and where my boundaries are. Also, it helped me build deep connections because people can be very open, and that openness is something that I really appreciate. Things don't quickly feel like oversharing with Dutch people, because this direct way of communicating, people don't really polish many topics, so it's fine to discuss a lot of different things. So also when I meet in Sweden another Dutch person, it's quickly so easy to talk about different things, and also because I know, I can just drop this and they won't be shocked, or I can talk about this topic, but maybe with someone else it might be seen as a taboo or as oversharing, but now I can just drop it with this stranger and it's totally fine and we have a fun conversation. For me, it's in that sense, it can be very easy to quickly connect with a Dutch person on a deeper level, but it can also be just because I'm so used to the culture. So maybe it is something you have when you share a culture, because you just understand all the nuances and you can more easily read how someone means something or what type of words they're using and all those kind of things. So I definitely think that the Dutch openness and directness gave me some things, but there was also quite a culture shock when I moved to Sweden. When I went on an exchange program in 2014 at Konstfack, an art school here in Stockholm, I was really surprised by how people interacted with each other. And in the group discussions, people would wait for each other. They would, if they were interrupting someone, they would say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you, and it's a very good point you're making." But there was way more respect in how people were interacting with each other. Also, the teachers, they weren't giving any negative feedback. Sometimes they would say some words, but there wasn't anything going on really. And I remember that this really was a shock to me, because I was used to people throwing things at each other all the time, just dropping opinions everywhere. And then the teachers, they would be worse. They are in a power position because you're depending on teachers if you're graduating or not. And especially at art school, you're depending on the taste and the preferences of the teacher if they like your work or not. They were also dropping a bunch of comments like on your personality, as I mentioned, like, "Oh, you look arrogant," or "Oh, I don't like this attitude or what you're doing here," and then if you wouldn't vibe with them, it was just very different from my Swedish experience. So yeah, that's a difference in Sweden that I really appreciate. But also, since I moved here, I noticed that sometimes it can be, for me, a little bit difficult to navigate between the very Dutch direct communication style and the Swedish way, which is less direct. And sometimes I have a hard time understanding what someone actually wants. Then I just wonder if they tell me what they would like, what they wouldn't like, what they prefer, if they tell me if something is wrong, or if I said something that was too straightforward, or if they are bothered by anything. Because with Dutch people, I know that people will tell me. Yeah, that's something I'm navigating here. Even though the Netherlands and Sweden have a lot in common, there are so many nuances that are different. I'm still improving my Swedish, but to really understand nuances in a language, or how someone says something, or reading between the lines, those things take more time. And sometimes it can be quite challenging to really navigate between what you're used to and how it works here in Sweden, and to find a balance between those two. To me, it's very interesting that since I moved to Sweden, I look at the Netherlands in such a different way. And honestly, sometimes this super directness, it's also too much for me. I don't always want an opinion that I didn't ask for, or I don't always want feedback or a judgment. But at the same time, I do really appreciate the openness and transparency in the Dutch communication style. And that's something I definitely keep with me also here in Sweden, but sometimes I just formulate things in a very different way, trying to still say the same. That's all I wanted to share today. If you happen to see this video, thank you. If you're interested in Swedish culture, cultural differences, and life abroad, then please click subscribe. It helps my tiny channel find more people who are interested in these topics, which would be very fun. I see you another time with another video.